Transportation, Infrastructure, Lands, Border Protection, Veterans Affairs, and Procurement calls this public hearing to order. It is 6:02 p.m., Monday, September 21st, 2015. Present with me today is, to my left, Senator Rory Respicio. To his left, Senator Nerissa Underwood. And to my right is Senator Frank Uggan. Thank you for joining us tonight. Purpose of this public hearing is to receive testimony on Bill 175-33, introduced by myself and R.J. Respicio. It's an act to prioritize the surveying, registration, and construction of infrastructure for Chamorro Land Trust Commission residential and agricultural properties using the proceeds of commercial leases through the enactment of rules and regulations for CLTC commercial leases. Notice of this public hearing was provided to senators, stakeholders, and the local media. A 5-day notice on September 14th and a 48-hour notice was provided on September 17th to senators, stakeholders, the local media, and was also published in the Guam Daily Post, thus meeting the requirements of the open government law. This public hearing is also being broadcast on local television, so please speak clearly into the microphone if you are providing oral testimony. The committee will continue to receive written testimony until 5 p.m. on Monday, September 28, 2015. Please address testimonies to Senator Thomas Ada, Chairperson, Committee on Transportation, Infrastructure, Lands, Border Protection, Veterans Affairs, and Procurement. We'll go ahead and we'll start the public hearing now. Just before we start, though, I just want to give a real brief overview of Bill 175. Bill 175 was introduced on September 11th, which was about 11 days after the legislature adjourned on August 28th. And at the August 28th meeting, as the committee chair, I did make the statement that we will continue the discussion despite the fact that the legislature deemed it prudent to disapprove the rules and regulations that were transmitted down to the legislature by the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. And so it kept to its word, and on September 11 introduced Bill 175-33. There are actually 4 components to Bill 175. One is it requires that the Chamorro Land Trust Commission in an open public meeting will at that time announce the list of commercial properties that it wants to make available for commercial leasing. That list will then be sent down to the legislature for the legislature's review and for a period of 60 days. And during that period, the committee chair or any senator may request to conduct a public hearing or a roundtable discussion on the rationale for the properties that have been identified for commercial leasing. The second thing second component of Bill 175 is to provide a set of rules and regulations as required by law for the purpose of leasing Chamorro Land Trust properties for commercial activities. The rules and regulations that are in Bill 175 is pretty much a mirror of the amended rules and regs that the legislature was discussing on August 28th, but at that time had run out of time and felt it was prudent to just disapprove it then and take our time about approving a set of rules and regs. The third component is it advocates a public-public partnership between Chamorro Land Trust Commission and the Guam Economic Development Authority to utilize the expertise and the resources that the Guam Economic Development Authority has to go out and find tenants for these properties that are to be commercially leased. In fact, that sort of arrangement was actually contemplated because in 2013 the governor had signed and approved a memorandum of understanding of an arrangement between Chamorro Land Trust and Guam Economic Development Authority. It also did the same thing with the Guam Ancestral Lands Commission, and has worked quite well for the Ancestral Lands Commission because, as I understand it, the Ancestral Lands Commission has been able to receive quite a substantial amount of money from, I guess, from its properties. The fourth and final component is, and probably the most important component of the bill, is that we've got to basically create an account of where these rent proceeds will go to. And so an account is being established, and it's being called the Chamorro Land Trust Survey and Infrastructure Fund. And so the revenue that is generated from the leasing of Chamorro Land Trust properties will then get deposited into this account. And in the bill, it states specifically that those funds will be utilized for two things. One, it will be used strictly for the survey and the construction of infrastructure on Chamorro Land Trust properties. Secondly, a part of that sum of money will be used to pay GIDA for the services that it provides in finding tenants and in managing the properties. And so those are the four components then of the Bill 175. And so with that, we're going to go ahead then and start receiving testimony on Bill 175. Signing up is Mr. Mike Borja. Mr. San Agustin, were you going to testify? You are, okay. Mr. San Agustin, Mr. Frank Shocker, and then if you want to wait, Vice Speaker Nelson, when the three gentlemen are finished, I'll call you up. So we'll start with Mr. Mike Borja. For the record, please state your name.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Senators. I am Mike Borja, the Administrative Director for the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to provide testimony on Bill number 175. The Chamorro Land Trust Commission does not object to the intent of Bill number 175 to codify the ability for the trust to engage in commercial leases and licenses. The lease agreement stipulations listed in Section 3 of this bill are similar to the terms specified in the June 3, 2015 transmitted rules. However, there are several significant items not included in this bill which was requested as part of the transmittal and discussed in the original form of Bill number 139. They include the ability to sublease or sublicense a space within a building, such as a room, but not to include subleasing the land, the ability to assign the lease in the event the ownership of the company changes, and the preference to a Chamorro owner or officer of the company in the selection process. Because other elements of this bill were not part of the transmittal of the rules, nor were they formally discussed and approved by the commissioners, we do not offer any other comment on these other sections of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. San Agustin.
Good evening, Senators. Al San Agustin, Chamorro Tribe. In the beginning, when this bill came out months ago, I was approached on this, and I looked at it as I like it and I don't like it. Question is, why do you like it? Well, 45 years we waited for land. Infrastructure for surveying has never been there. And I think it's about time that we need to pass a law to provide the infrastructure on commercial leases. The I don't like is because it is illegal, but I guess we can make this thing legal by defining it properly and stating within the laws to define everything that's in this paper to protect the interests of all land that we have. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. San Agustin. Mr. Shocker?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, honorable committee members. My name is Frank Shocker. I'm the chairman of the Chamorro Tribe. I'd first like to start by thanking and congratulating the legislature for taking this step. It's always been the intent for the land trust to be self-supporting. In order for the land trust to be able to do that, the land trust needs to have a source of income. These commercial leases would enable the land trust to be a self-supporting trust as it was meant to be. That being said, the lease program needs to be closely monitored. We've learned from the past that people do have a tendency to take advantage. There are currently commercial leases out there that shouldn't be out there. I'd like to see that addressed in this bill as well. What actions will be taken concerning the commercial leases that have already been entered into that are unlawful? Secondly, I would like to mirror what I believe is missing from the context of this bill with Mr. Borja's testimony, and to go a little bit more in depth into the subleasing. Currently, we have an overage, an overabundance of housing and apartments on Guam to the point where many are empty. Why would we need an investor to build any apartment complexes or low-income, so-called low-income development projects on land trust property when it's all available off of land trust property, with many properties being currently empty? They were built in advance of the military buildup that didn't occur. Third, the 25-year. I'm also a businessman. If a commercial entity was to lease some land trust property and build, say, an office building or even a manufacturing plant, they would need to invest more than $1 million to do that. Now, if you're going to prorate $1 million over 25 years, especially if you're entering into a small business, that means that for that 25-year time period, you're going to have to commit at least $50,000 and set that aside just to pay back the $1 million that you put out to build that structure. So I think that this lease should be for a minimum of 25 years. If we're expecting commercial entities to invest that amount of money into building on land trust lands, then we should give them the ability to make a return on their investment. That's going to take time. It's not going to happen within 5 years. It will take time. We have to recognize that, and we have to allow the flexibility for that. Now, if we give them that time and they still don't succeed as a business, well, then everything reverts back to the land trust. And maybe they can find somebody else to rent a building that was already built. Okay, I believe that that should also be addressed, the time limitation. It's still going to require legislative approval either way, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. But we should have it as a minimum of 25 years. A lot of businesses, if you're going to put in that kind of infrastructure, it's going to take you 50 years of doing business just to get your money back. Especially on businesses where you don't have any infrastructure on the land and you got to start from scratch. So we need to consider that aspect. The third, keeping in mind that the land trust should be self-supporting, if they're not allowed to use the revenue from these commercial leases to pay operating expenditures according to this bill, how can they become self-supporting? If all those funds have to be used specifically for infrastructure and surveying, then they can't use any of those funds for operating expenditures. Now, I'm also a land trust trustee and recipient. But like a lot of people in the land trust, when I got my lease, I paid the whole thing in advance. So land trust does not get a recurring revenue from my lease. The majority of the leases out there today are agricultural, residential, and a lot of them did the same thing I did. Pay it all in advance. So there's no recurring revenue to land trust. They should be able to use a percentage of the funds received from these commercial leases for operating expenditures. Then maybe we can get the land agents who can go out and enforce these regulations out on the different properties where we have all these squatters. And that is a big problem, because they're creating their own little dump sites on land trust land. But the land trust needs the infrastructure, they need the staffing to be able to go out there and do their jobs. This could afford them that infrastructure and staffing, but they have to have the flexibility with the funding. And that's pretty much my observation, having just read this bill prior to this hearing. Again, I'd like to congratulate the legislature for taking action on this, because it is necessary. It is necessary. And with the legislature involved in it, I'm sure that we can accomplish more transparency throughout the entire process, and that's a very good thing. Thank you for the opportunity of coming to speak to you tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Shocker. Does anybody have any questions? And I also want to recognize the presence of Senator Frank Bloss, who's joined us this evening. Senator Reagan? Okay. Just one question. Mr. Borja, Mr. Shocker brought up the issue about also, I guess, identifying a third use of the fund for your operational costs and whatnot. How is the CLTC operations funded now?
We get our monies from whatever we've collected from commercial properties and licenses that have been issued out previously. That goes into the fund that's identified for Chamorro Land Trust as well, plus some general funds to carry us the rest of the way, whatever doesn't meet what our requirements are for funding.
Okay. All right. Great. All right. If nobody here has any questions from this panel, I'll go ahead and dismiss you and ask Vice Speaker Nelson to join us. Ms. Flores, did you want to testify? Think about it? Okay.
Good evening, Edson.
Good evening.
Panalig fan. Kalaman gagi. Figaro. Over Central Blast. Central Underwood. Respicio. That's it. Central Hagen. Good evening. My name is Ted Scambrori Flores Torres Espinosa Nelson. Mr. Chairman, we have to ask ourselves, do we want to lease all these properties now, or do we want to wait another 5 years or 10 years. I think we have to make the decision. What do we want to do? What? Hava? But that's all agree. It's the 9,000, 10,000 applicants. But that's all in it. Nangas of another commercial leases. You know how long that would take. We have to approach this positively and progressive. I think we can do it. We can do it if the committee, the chairman, and the director commission would reevaluate where we are now, what are the problems, and have a new set of goals in order to realize the Chamorro dream. Commercial lease. I object to that. Safana. Safana pata. No ito to hizo. Pata no agida. The poadzik. Haji Malako. Tano Chamorro Land Trust. This island is booming. The military is here. It's here to stay. And there will be more money coming in. Why do we have to lease Chamorro Land Trust for other people? I suggest, guys, that any Chamorro land to be leased. No, it's Chamorro. No, it's Chamorro. Give them preference, Mr. Bora. Give them priority. No, Mr. 6 meses advertised. As the corner lot gives a Polaris point available for the Chamorro to lease. Don't just give it out to Korean and other investors. Why can't we do it that way? Why can't we allow our own people priority to lease this property? I know we're saying that. I understand where you guys are coming from. Politically, I understand what's going on between this legislature, Bora and Adlu. But you have to realize also that this is not the way to go. You know, folks, Pago na ora. There are millions and millions of square meters na tono. Mananay it's Chamorro. Hujung game federal. Excess federal land. Why can this government, Gita, Ajudas to say, Tano ge hormone, Polaris Point, PD. He available, that's on the Tano, nesti man release tati. Educate Debbie, the press said Chamorro. They're all Chamorros. Who owns all these land that are being released? Why can Gita get to all these landowners, get them together and the community and find out, like PD for example, there's potential in PD, Polaris Point, there's potential for business if it up in Harmon because of the military coming in. Why don't we allow our own Chamorros who were denied of their property for over 70 years? I think we can get some help our people by doing it this way. Ang intaldas the private properties to lease to all these big investors. It's una sutta tonight and tomorrow. No sovereign upon these investors and me. They got millions coming in. Korea, Thailand, Taiwan, all over the place. They're here to make money. And one easy way to make money, sulitan sa Chamorro sa Barotri lease. Why don't we hold back the commercial lease on the Chamorro Land Trust and allow GIDA and land management to work with all the original landowners to lease their property? We cannot deny our own Chamorro people to pafanlala gitanota. Hafana by gobyerno, this government now is going to fight against private Chamorros property owners. Naturally, these private investors, they'd rather go to Chamorro Land Trust to lease. It's cheaper. That's one way to make money. Now, what about the other Chamorros private property landowners? It doesn't make sense. Na po na, lala, itatawhidjong kami, manmikibli. They can lease out private properties in Harmon. And I'll repeat, PD, potential for commercial. Polaris Point, potential talo. Bulagit Chamorro, Mangay Tano. Nisa tanawis this year. Familiata, oportunidad. Zofandana, Janigila, land management, Janigubendo legislature, as to what we can do to help us, to help them. Because right now, these lands are all lying there. They got them back, they can do it. Because they're not going to get the opportunity to develop their property through commercial lease or for investment, because we have the government, yung banda. Hey, Mr. Kim, it's the 1 acre, $100 a month. Mga matsuli, tano Tan Maria, sa $100, $200 a month. Why? Soften it. Please fanlay. Hasufan. Itaw-tawta. For 70 years, we have been denied to develop our own properties. Now that we have the opportunity, because the military are here, we're going to have the Chamorro Land Trust, Agida, to capture these incoming ventures and deny. This is total injustice. Dispenser like. Do you understand? Yung kumpanya farili ko, i-point. And again, malagunias, the outside investors. Duro manliliko pa ako. Sama raman with the government. Gaya gina researchers. Offer siya na prime lot available. Get some more land trust. It's the Miman magic. go minister scout in advance. Then go okay, Chamorro, Manisha Dynasty. And I hope to God that we don't have any of our elected officials getting involved in cahoot with all these outside business to deny the Chamorro this opportunity. My point is this: if we are sincere in helping the Chamorros, if we are sincere in granting agriculture leases for the Chamorro to realize Chamorro dream, then we have to approach it differently. The idea in Ungan, sure, we can make millions by selling the Chamorro Land Trust. Para half. Guaha, Mr. Chairman, and members of this committee, Guaha, legislatura, revenues. Sinatausa, Yatanai, si Mr. Bora, then the commission, some more land trust. So they begin surveying internally or hiring surveyors and crew members to survey agricultural lots. So subdivision, you will be required to put all the infrastructures. My suggestion, Prahamdani Chamorros, truly gago agricultural land. Siya half acre or 1 acre. Again, truly 1 acre or half acre, siya not sa gibamo. Siya manano mo. That you don't worry about infrastructure. And punanga, iko bedno, come up with infrastructure for subdivision. Man moted don't know. We will never, unless you do what I did many, many years ago. Is that point coming across? Click. Ano ba sa ano? Guaha Gulo Dedido, golf course. The guy, I have all these bills. I try not to, unless we're going to stay here all night. Hey, I'm not speaking for myself. Manihigay tao to pa ako nora. Maybe need. Bulan be concerned senators. Muna pa favor. Man makonyam niya papagi hotel or often a diner, often a reception. Forget about those. Let's go out to the woods. Ano urusong sindi Chamorro. Temani naman nalala. Half a problem Chamorro Land Trust and Safa Ratada Kibli. Mr. Bora needs help. Let me just try to make this short. If in any now I want to tell you, Guahagilu is a golf course, Mr. Chairman. 125,000 probably plus a year rental. Mungi sila kabli. How long will it? If you can compute the rental money coming in from that lease alone, you can subdivide 9,000 agricultural land in the next 6 months. And if you're going to subdivide, if you're going to give land, do it for the next 6 months. And let me tell you, I think we can do it, sir. If we can find that 125,000 a year for the last 20 years, where in the hell is that money now? Aju Musa. Why can't we get that money and give it to Mr. Bora? Give it to Chamorro Land Trust. And hire the surveyor, hire the crew, and start subdividing land and start na-iuso imalago tono even without infrastructure. Ami man sa more. Amso man hobin amso. Kung disti tatin militad mati sa panis mati nebo government but mati civil government. Continue. I hope they realize what our parents had to go through to survive in this land. Ano man only tano man madagod the reservation. Hulog ilang tano. Hulog isisod. Ami managang isisod. Tay manam lala. Dapat sulit ano. Taliham ko ni Prime Lord siya eh. Find out where that money is. What's being done, Mr. Bora, with the 125,000 lease the golf course. And then I'll bet you, and you can ask the territorial auditor to audit. Let him send Doris Brooks in and start off find out where the money, because you'll bet you, Mr. Chairman, you'll find some of this money. The other revenue, that we're talking about revenue versus leasing. I got a bill here, Public Law Talo, that I introduced over 20 years ago. Is the infrastructure loan from the proceeds ni Tano ni Mambendi. Ki as Lucas. Ki Iha. Pigwa. Humanic subdivision. Pamatsuli sa nakobli. Sa Pamapolo infrastructure fund. Spear Gatsun. Again, Pago si Doris. Primo. Jogging audit. Got millions and millions of dollars. Asa, $2,500 mafahan itano kada uno gini subdivision. 2,500. They got 200 the subdivision. Guess Lucas, but then minarahan mas megay. You marak, yes na talo lamigay. Find out where the money. Where is it? Managay. If you can do that, Mr. Chairman, you have a man with you that can help you. As my former student, Mr. Joseph Bora, is the one of the men in this island that if anybody knows about land. Gwisa, so this is John Bond, but also this the high school, the director. At tuwo po tono, por favor, consult. Task si Joe Bora and some of the staff members to address this issue. I think that we can do it internally. We did it. How? We did it without bonding. Yan naman talaga kay Boyso. Commit excited ulit. Sita gimin like Scots. At talalay kay Boyso. Okay, kinalisa. Kaya ata nilisa na talalay kay Boyso. If you want to find out how we subdivided, we have subdivision internally. Gizazigo, Dedidu, Pagazzo, Umadak, Iya, Meleso, Inaran, Talufofo. We did our subdivision map. Internally done by land management working together with the director. And I'm pretty sure that Mr. Bora and that Mr. Bora and this committee can do the same thing. But we need to get together. My problem then was that I was the oversight chairman for Public Works, oversight chairman for the mayor, oversight chairman of the governor's office, oversight chairman for the mayor's office, government house, administration. So I have the internal latitude to get all these directors, the mayor's come. So we're all under my purview. But if you can get everybody together, we can tell those applicants out there, the 9,000, di man nagkataw. Kung man hobi manasaga, manasagagi tanui yan ko or linto taza nagagago na todo give them land, let them build what they want to build. But the lucky thing is, guwapo pagupugumana si Mr. Bora, land management, mapagiging guwapo tano available. Lease it tano right away. Then have them go to Mr. Bora. Question affordable program, Mr. Chairman. Question structure that can be built. 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom. Our kids don't need a mansion. Our kids don't need to spend $250,000. Probably how we started out. This is the old ways, where we have the land, and then we bring 1 tin, next day 2 tin. She can expand it. That's how the old Chamorro works. Sa manada na Mr. Chair. On this day, imandadalak, tinaso na binte. Pag sina na natatsogi pago. Van na dalalak, Hanzo ni Manmagas. Then 33 applicants that are Judagatsun. Just imagine that you can discover that Goha 5 million or 10 million Greenigi infrastructure from the landless, and another 5 million from the golf course lease. You know how far you can go. The people out there will be happy. Set up 6 months and we can start doing it. Spencer, nagkaroon bigyan ta?
Agwata luman nananggal ki paukentos.
Huh?
Guahalo ki man nananggal ocho na
Walter?
paukentos.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll stop right now. But can I? You want to hear me or what? Well, let me. Can we ask that person to come up and can you hear him?
Yeah, I would like to.
Oh, recess.
I would like to give her the opportunity to
Okay,
speak.
no problem. Oh, you for them, Simon.
Sorry.
I can get my voice back.
Okay. As far as
I'm sorry.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Monica Flores, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share some of my thoughts on Bill 17533. I'm going to provide very brief oral testimony tonight and hope to submit written testimony to supplement my statement this evening. I just found out a few moments ago about this hearing and just felt compelled to come and speak on just share my thoughts, my initial response to this bill. I am extremely concerned about the bill. While I know that it's founded in good intentions in terms of trying to identify funds to help with infrastructure needs and needs to fund the Land Trust Commission, I think that it inherently goes against the very foundation in which the bill was created to assist with the challenges and the struggles of Chamorro people in finding homes and in living sustainably in their own land. It also goes against all of the hard work that the Honorable Senator Berdalio, Senator Santos have done to try to start and protect the land trust. It also goes against champions such as Senator Ben Pangilinan, who've tried to protect the land trust in its existence. Now, when I feel like if we open up the land trust to possibilities of commercial leases, it's really opening up a Pandora's box. Once we allow for that to happen, it just reminds me of the land grabbing right after World War II, and we have to think about that we come from, this sort of systematic land taking, this systematic oppression through land condemnation, and this is something that we're constantly dealing with, and we're even dealing with today. And so when you think about what the land trust is really for, and also just this history of dispossession of our own native lands, and the opening it up to commercial leases will only promote that further dispossession, I believe. And so I would just like to just come and say that that I and members of my family are strongly opposed to Bill 17533, and thank you so much for your time. I will be giving written testimony by the 28th deadline, and I ask that the committee sort of think about the historic injustices that have taken place on our island through colonization, through war, which include the dispossession of our lands and our resources. It's sort of, it's still a problem, a systematic problem today, and that we have to recognize an urgent need to maintain the rights of Indigenous people to our own lands and resources. And this is the priority of the Chamorro Land Trust. This is why it was established in the first place. And opening it up to commercial developers, for whatever reason, even if it comes from a good place, is really opening up Pandora's box for potentially very destructive and loss of control over more public trusted lands. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Flores. I just have one question.
Sure.
So if we don't lease out Chamorro Land Trust properties to generate revenue, to be able to go out there and survey, to be able to go out and construct infrastructure,
Right.
where do you propose we should get the revenues from?
Well, that's really interesting. That question's really interesting, and I would love to spend more time to think about it and submit it in my written testimony. I feel like that question definitely is a question that all of us in the community need to think about. When I think about, I know there's a need for money. I know that there's a lot of farmers and people out there who want land for agricultural use, and they cannot afford the infrastructure for water on that property. I know that there's a need to find funding for that infrastructure to be developed. I also feel like if we open up Chamorro Land Trust lands for commercial developers, it's sort of like cutting off your right hand to take care of the left hand. And so I don't have an answer for you right now where we could find, revenues for that. For myself, I came here really just hearing about this moments ago as a concerned citizen. So I would like to spend some time to kind of maybe come up with some great ideas for you and put it in my written testimony.
Great, and I appreciate that. And also, while you're preparing that testimony, maybe you should take a look at the front section of the first section of the bill, which I think addresses the concern of the potential runaway leasing of property for commercial activities, and right now it's requiring that the Chamorro Land Trust basically come up with its list of properties and then send it down to the legislature so that we then have an opportunity to be able to look at it and discuss it and better understand the rationale for it.
And I did read that first part of the law, and I do appreciate, the sort of proactive measure it's trying to take in terms of mitigating any land grabbing or giving the best lands away within the land trust to developers. However, again, I think that we're opening up a Pandora's box for the continued systematic taking of native lands. Yeah.
All right. Senator, did you?
Thank you for coming here, Ms. Flores. So, just so we clarify this, your primary opposition is really that in Section 2, the native Chamorro eligibility is no longer required for leasing of the land of the commercial properties. Is that your primary opposition? Or are you just opposed to the...
That is my primary opposition. That is my primary opposition.
Yeah.
Section 2 designation for commercial use by a commercial use, yes, taking it away.
Yeah.
Yes.
It states that native Chamorro eligibility is not required, although there would be preferential rating, I believe, right? So, so if we made sure that Chamorro eligibility stays in place,
Right.
and the rest of the sections will stay in that there would be a list of land that would be sent down, and it's limited, would you be okay with that?
Well, I appreciate that the law as it is written tries to prioritize the commercial leases to Chamorro landowners. I still believe that there are very few Chamorro families who could benefit from that sort of line in the law, specifically because the Chamorro Land Trust was created to help those who don't have a lot to begin with. And this kind of goes against all of everything that it was founded on. It's going to benefit very select few Chamorro elite families if they are able to get a commercial business on the Chamorro Land Trust properties.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Senator Blas? Senator Respicio? Okay. I also want to thank you very much, Ms. Flores. I appreciate it, and I look forward to your testimony.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
We certainly don't have a monopoly on ideas.
Right. Thank you so much, Chairman. And again, committee members, I respectfully appreciate your ears, and members of the Chamorro Land Trust who are here this evening, and former Vice Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I also want to just state for the record that we did receive testimony from Mr. John Rios, the Administrator of Guam Economic Development Authority, speaking basically about the impact of the bill, the bill's impact on GIDA as it discusses that partnership with Chamorro Land Trust Commission. So, Vice Speaker Nelson, did you still have some more points that you wanted to cover?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Why can we wait for audit to find out where this money is available? If so, we can give it to the director and do it internally. We don't need GIDA. There's money lying around, Mr. Chairman, and I've identified the sources. We did this 5 subdivision land for the landless without any bonding. We did internally, and besides, why can we appropriate money? They got lapses all over. Why can't we get it from GVP? Why can't we use Section 30? Why can't we appropriate money for the land for the landless, or Chamorro Land Trust, for land management to operate? It's a law. It is not illegal. Judge Cruz already. Why are we afraid to come up with the money for Mr. Borja and the territorial surveyor to start giving them the resources? We did it then, I don't know how. But you can check with Frank Castro. This is about probably several $1 million worth of work but we didn't ask for any bonding whatsoever. And I'm very serious about, and I beg you, senators, to please check first the availability of these two funding that I pointed out before you do anything. And I'll bet you can find a lot of money for this purpose of subdividing. I might just add at this point, yeehaw! We can appropriate. By God, we have given private developers $4 million. Private developers for infrastructure, water, power, sewer. Bagoy gida. Iha. Tisinataray ko. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, and itatagon, and I'm din tatoiya. Go have 5 million. Set aside and si Kao Gutierrez para iya subdivision. Tungo pa matsogi di man magas sa politics. Matsusa daw namahan mastodi subdivision that we did. Mahatsa i $25 homes. Zaman ma-deny over 300 na inarohan Chamorro Land Trust. It's the POGO, Mr. Chairman. Manananga. Landowners, for many years. Soften. Why can't we appropriate? We got money, if we can do it.
Pues, Mr. Vice Speaker Nelson, zangin para ta appropriate slapi, ginin hadzi para ta amun ispitat, edukasyon. Ay, pabi comprende amana patas angin sa no tigwiza gofmiga islapi, pues zangin para ta IP para ta naigatu Chamorro Land Trust, hadzine para ta amun ispitat, tatsuli ginin.
That's not a fair question.
Well, I sa purisiga no sangan na para ta appropriate, pues pabi comprende lo que.
Why can't you appropriate?
Pues it's an question, no?
Mr. Chairman, and you are aware of this, that there was local subdivision private that were given millions and millions for outsiders. The subdivision, Pogo, Petsamoro, Moromonoy, Iha, Sofa. Why not, Gatsum? We can do it for those outsiders. Why can't we do it for our Chamorros? That's all I'm saying. And like I said, Mr. Chair, I beg you, please check first on the available income proceeds on these two programs, the golf course, and the sale of hundreds and hundreds of lots for the land list. I got all of them here. And again, Taza Kebline. If you can find this money, then perhaps gotta check with the chairman. Bulan bilapses. Dana got some people out there are questioning. Hafa zangin pa babarias wakebli. Pago punusa na. Eskwela taza leblu taza supplies. Siya punusa no as an excuse. Hazi ka iso na taza pagi famagun. Taza supplies the classroom. Mama, they have to buy their own. But that's not the question. Just stick to the issues on the land for the land list. The Asuiya. Check with the chairman of the committee. Check with the DOA. There might be some money available at Gida. Daleji Gida. Noise tano. Kobli udrong by outside investors. You know, Mr. Chairman, when I'm going for 200-300 na young couples, families, familia, mamananang, inarohan, ni infrastructure. Tisina, napatasot Thursday. Ito no sa mga emphasize. Sina tasuli GVB. Sina tasuli Section 30 money. Why can't we? Sina tasuli lapses. I can find lapses. I can't find it here. But you folks can. You can find lapses all over the place. Money, FY15 money that have not been used. Take those money away and give it to Mr. Bora. Take and give it to IA, another land trust program. I know you're bored with me, Mr. Chairman, though. I don't know, like, we're all thinking of the same thing. But I'm deeply concerned about our Chamorros, our young kids. Our land being laying idle. Now, but we can do it. By God, I don't know how I did it in 2 or 3 years. We have realized the Chamorro dream, and we did it internally because we got together. You get together with Mr. Bora, Chamorro Land Trust, with BJ, the administration, and Gita. And you'll be able to achieve these goals. Esta man also ni tauta. Ni delay. It's up to you folks. But that's what I would do if I were you. And first, let me thank you for this opportunity. I'm sorry about my voice. I know it may be annoying. Mrs. Underwood? Do I sound like Bakla? I'm sorry. That's what that called me. But I have to do it. I know I'm not supposed to. But I have to get this thing out of my chest. If I don't get it out of my voice, at least get it out of my chest that I did this thing. But it's for Chamorruta to realize the Chamorro dreams. Thank you. Si Diyos Masi.
Si Diyos Masi, Vice Speaker
Thank you,
Nelson,
Mr.
ni tempo mo. Diyos Masi. And so, if there are no other questions, and the Committee on Transportation, Infrastructure, Lands, Border Protection, Veterans Affairs, and Procurement hereby adjourns this public hearing. The time is 7:03 p.m.